See, are we? I think we are good to go. I'm going to get started here. We have a pretty good audience today, which is lovely. I'm going to start as usual with our innovator Did You Know fact. And Jim Oliver, I was initially going to have you be our show and tell innovation Did You Know fact, and I was going to bring you, but I got to say you were upstaged today by Elizabeth Smith. Elizabeth Smith, I'm sorry, I got to announce it. It's a big announcement. Elizabeth Smith was one of the people through our Student Innovation Fellows program. We did some sessions. We work with students on big projects. And Elizabeth Smith had a big project idea called the Backyard Stewardship Program Initiative. And it helps with food insecurity. It helps people connect with food sources and understand where their food comes from. And so she she competed to put a proposal forward to the Eric Schmidt. It's the Eric Schmidt, who was the former CEO of Google, to the Reimagine 2020 challenge, and which is a scholarship opportunity. These students will get a $25,000 scholarship, and in addition, their school that represents them also gets the $25,000 scholarship, university gift. And our university pledged to do with that gift is to return it to the student and invest it in the student project. So in addition to a scholarship, there would be an additional $25,000. So Elizabeth was one of a very few people that went on to round 2. So we're really rooting for her as she gets ready for round 2 of the competition on the 15th of November. She has to submit her application. We're very proud of her. So sorry, Jim, she is our innovation Did You Know?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Our Student Innovation Fellows program is built for things like this, to really elevate our students, to make a big difference, to accelerate their progress, to really put them in positions where they can go faster, better, more different, expand their minds. So somebody has a dog in the background.
Me.
I would guess.
Yep. Sorry.
Jim, I was going to ask you to speak next anyway, briefly. I am introducing our panel today. Anna Luge from the College of Design, who is the Director of Entrepreneurship Innovation for the College of Design. Anna, can you show your face? Great, a fabulous experience with a human being. We have Dennis Muilenburg, of course, who I'll talk about in a little bit here. Nakaya Rucker, who is our moderator. Nakaya is going to collect chat information from any and all of you, and she will connect questions from you. So please feel free to enter them into the chat. We have Spencer. Spencer, can you show your face? Spencer Braley is our technical person. There we go. Spencer, we can't start a day without your Christmas lights in the background. So there we go. Spencer is our IT guy. Thank you, Spencer. And I'm just going, Jim Oliver will be helping us moderate. He's our guest moderator today because he is an engineer and a brilliant leader for our Student Innovation Center and our Innovate at Iowa State initiative. So I am introducing Dennis Muilenburg, who is our first pioneer innovator in residence. And he really actually has helped me set the pace, literally, physically and intellectually, for our Innovate at Iowa State initiative around the Fellows Innovation Program. He was my collaborator, my brainstormer in combination with Jim Oliver. And so Dennis is helping us lead that effort, leading a circuit training with students, taking 92 registered students through a process of understanding the innovator's journey. He does that on Thursday evenings, and also he's mentoring with our student. He's helping coach us as to what it looks like in the future for innovative universities. He is the owner of DAM CyFly Consulting. He was also the prior chairman, president, and CEO of the Boeing company. Dennis, welcome today.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate the invitation to join you and the kind words. And it's great teaming up with you and Jim and the whole team at Iowa State. Well,
we wouldn't be where we are if it weren't for you. So Jim Oliver, can I just introduce you as well? Jim is the director of our Innovation Center, has been previously director of the Virtual Reality Center at Iowa State, and just a wonderful leader and innovator himself, and is terrific at brokering relationships, which have really accelerated our student progress. Jim, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself, and then go ahead and begin our interview experience with Dennis.
That sounds great. And thanks. I'm honored to be the guest moderator today. And by the way, it looks like I'm sitting right in the stepatorium of the Student Innovation Center, but it is fake. I'm at home, and it is trash day, and my dogs don't like it when they go by. So I'll try and mute appropriately. But thanks again, Dennis, for coming. All the effort and imagination and work that's gone into building our programming as we go forward. It's really fantastic to have you participate in Flagship Fridays. My journey's kind of interesting, but I'm an engineer as well, which is what Dennis and I have in common. But I was always I had the imposter syndrome. Never thought I could get an advanced degree. I started out in community college. Went to a private school for the last 2 years, started in engineering, but my real introduction to innovation, I parlayed an internship at an engineering company into a full part-time job my last 2.5 years of college, and a full-time job shortly thereafter. But it really opened my eyes to the possibilities and learning from people that are sort of leading the way. So I eventually, after my PhD, I, of course, was not smart enough to be a professor, but I landed in the software business in Cincinnati, Ohio, and learned a little bit about how startups work. And then finally decided I better try my hand at being a professor. I did that at University of Buffalo for 3 years, and then I was recruited to Iowa State in the very dawn of time for some of you students. It was early days, 1991, and I was lured here by a colleague, a mentor of mine. So keep your networks straight. He came and said, I have funding to start a new center. You'd be perfect to help me do it. And I moved to Ames and had a great success, but again, was lured back to the private sector. I recommend you keep your networks close. Two of my friends from graduate school had started a company that had an IPO, and I got sort of sucked into that and traveled around the world, learning about how companies work, what their problems are, how to innovate solutions. And then I eventually came back to the university. I was in another startup in between. And also along the way started another company with colleague Elliot Weiner. So we are the co-founders of BodyViz. It's now 13 years old, and it's focused on medical visualization for education, legal, and other markets. So I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur and a kind of an admirer of innovators. So that's the quick version of, and so when this job opened up, it was the ideal job for me, and I was thrilled to get it. So looking forward to Dennis mining your insights and taking advantage of it. And just fair warning, Dennis and I have known each other for probably more than 10 years. I followed his career along the way and just have admired his leadership and innovative spirit. So with that little background, I think, Dennis, I'd like to kick it off with a kind of, maybe you tell us your journey as an innovator. How did you get started? I know you started as an intern at Boeing, as an undergraduate at ISU. And in case some of you didn't know, Dennis is a graduate of our aerospace engineering program. But why don't you lead off with how that all came to be and how you were attracted to Boeing and how you began to become an innovator?
Will do. Well, hey, Jim, thanks for the intro, and the admiration is mutual. I've enjoyed our partnership over the years too, so we've done a lot of fun things together. So thanks for that. I grew up in the fine state of Iowa on a farm, and grew up on my family farm. Learned a lot about life and my values from my parents growing up there. And learned about the value of hard work and integrity and bringing that to everything that you did. And always had an interest in airplanes and space. And it was something that caught my imagination as a kid, and had the opportunity to go to Iowa State to pursue my aerospace engineering degree. And at the point I entered Iowa State, this is back in 1982, I was thinking about both architecture and engineering as potential options. Hadn't really decided what I wanted to do yet. But once I got to Iowa State, got hooked into aerospace engineering. And then in my junior year, I was approached by a Boeing recruiter. I remember sitting in a computer lab somewhere on campus, and was approached by a Boeing recruiter as I was at that time the T.A. Wilson scholarship holder at Iowa State. T.A. Wilson being one of the previous CEOs of Boeing, also an Iowa State grad. And the recruiter talked to me about a potential job in Seattle for the summer. And after talking to my family about that, I decided to take that internship and jumped in my 1982 Monte Carlo and drove from Iowa to Seattle. And first time I saw the Rocky Mountains, when I got to Seattle in the area, first time I saw the Pacific Ocean. And that summer, I worked on something called the high-speed civil transport. This was a supersonic passenger airplane that Boeing was in the concept design phase on. Cool. And just enjoyed it, really, really enjoyed it. Caught my attention. And what I thought the most about was the people of Boeing, the amazing people that I met. And that really connected me to the company. So I took a leave of absence, came back, finished my senior year at Iowa State, got my bachelor's degree, and then headed right back to Seattle and started full-time there in 1986 and spent the next 35 years at Boeing, starting as an intern, engineering intern in the aerodynamics staff.
Excellent, excellent.
Dennis, I do have a question for Dennis, Jim, if I might.
Yeah, please.
You talked about the people, because I think that's really important to especially for our young people. There was something about the people that told you that was a place that would make you successful. That was a place that you wanted to belong to. I think our students would be really thrilled to understand, what does that look like? What should they look for when you say people?
Yeah, when I look at an organization and the people that are involved, right, you can always tell whether it's a collaborative organization, whether people enjoy working together. There's a team spirit, and that was one thing I encountered at Boeing. They were amazing people, a lot of very smart individuals, incredible talent, but they also had this desire to collaborate and work as part of a team, and that really attracted me. I was also attracted by the fact that there was a sense of, I'll say, integrity and excellence about the work that they did. And I think that's, part of the nature of aerospace is lives depend on the work that we do. And I could tell that culturally that was embedded in the people. And so they had this deep passion for the mission, for what they did. They cared about the results and the excellence of the results. So it's this combination of teamwork, collaborative spirit, and this idea of being truly excellent at what you do, and the sense of integrity and values that go with that. I think that was the combination that really caught my attention. And then, of course, the opportunity to work on just these amazing products that change the world. So when you get to do things that really change the world, and you're an ambitious young engineer, right? Those things fit together pretty well.
Yeah, Dennis, can you maybe describe how you, for a lot of us, mentorship is key in, especially early in your career. How did you identify potential mentors, and how did you benefit from them?
Yeah, I had a lot of great mentors early in my career. And as you mentioned earlier, Jim, maintaining that network of mentors is really a great thing to do. And it paid off for me later in my career as well. But I still remember my first senior manager, his name was Fred May, was the guy that hired me into Boeing as an intern. He, about 7 years later, was the guy that put me into my first management position at Boeing. Even though I didn't really think I wanted to move from engineering to management, he coaxed me into doing that. And the thing I remember about Fred is I was attracted to him again because he was a collaborator. He was a leader I respected. He just had this sense of integrity about him. But he always challenged me, right? He always wanted me to work on something harder. And I kind of adopted the spirit of going out and seeking the hardest things I could work on. And that sort of became my career strategy, was go find the hardest things to work on and then knock those jobs out of the park. And fortunately, I had mentors that would, encourage me to do that, allowed me to take risks and sometimes fail. and then help me learn from those failures, and then give me the next big hard assignment. And I think it's important to find somebody who you can, personally respect. You respect their character, so you can trust them, but also somebody that's going to challenge you in your career, somebody who's going to help you stretch and grow. Yeah. And then remember, as you receive mentoring, ultimately the responsibility to give back and be a mentor to others. And every mentoring relationship I've had has turned out to be a two-way relationship. And I often learn more than I give through those connections.
Excellent.
Dennis, I have a follow-up question. I'm interested in learning a little bit more about, because we all know the great things that you're doing, and we're able to now reap the benefits of the great insight and the knowledge that Fred has given you. Now we're able to benefit through that. My question to you is, what did Fred see in you at a young age? Like, what were some characteristics that he said, that guy's going places, I want to mentor him?
That's a good question. I'm not quite sure, right? It's, it probably was a combination of the fact that I was highly motivated, right? I had a passion for the mission as well. And when I came to Boeing, I wanted to work on things that changed the world. I wanted to make the world a better place. And I think that, was part of my character that I brought to the company, to the team. And so that probably helped get me noticed. I always showed a willingness to go work on the hard stuff. I didn't shy away from the toughest assignments. And I know in a big company like Boeing, when you can find people who are willing to step out and take risk and go work on really hard stuff, that's a way to sometimes get noticed. So perhaps that played into it. Yeah. So I'm not really sure, but I'm very thankful for the fact that he reached down and gave me the opportunity. And sometimes it's just a matter of leaders who reach down in the organization, find a talented person, and then just give them a shot, right? And open doors for them. And something that I remember that I tried to practice throughout my career is to really stay close to the people, be down on the floor, connect with our people, seek out talent, and then go purposely, grab some of the best talent and give them stretch opportunities and put them in positions where they can really grow. And, Fred did that for me, and I had future mentors who did the same thing. And I think it's just a good reminder that mentoring and talent development has to be a very active process. It's not a passive process.
Right.
May I say something as well? Hi, Dennis.
Hi, Anna.
So on that, piggyback with Nakaya and what you were saying, and in design we talk a lot about creative potential. So I want to guide us there, because one of the questions that Nakaya had, what were the characteristics? And we talked about this a lot because I'm impressed by that sentence. And you always went for the hardest. But how, as a young person, can you identify what is the hardest? Is the impossible? Is the one who's going to put you out of your comfort zone? Is the project that no one wants, so you're the misfit? What characterizes the hardest, so that we can look at what are the creative potential, what is the talent that you have to reach for the, I don't know if it is the impossible. I don't know in aviation if you can lead us there. Yeah.
Yeah. So great point, right? So hardest has many different definitions. And in my version of that, I always wanted to look for something that had a great deal of complexity to it. So technical complexity, but also business and culture complexity. So solving a problem that nobody else could figure out how to solve. We worked on, I remember working on a project developing a prototype airplane called the X-32, which was designed to serve 3 different customers in a common airframe. And the idea was an airplane that could take off and land from traditional runways. It could also operate from aircraft carriers with catapult launch, and it could do vertical landing and takeoff for the Marine Corps, all in one airplane. And traditionally, you would say that's impossible. It can't be done. And our assignment was to go do it. And that was my first chief engineer job. And we went from a paper design, a concept, to flying 2 prototype airplanes in 4 years. And people started one, you can't do it, and two, there's no way you could possibly meet that schedule. So what I love to find is opportunities when people say it can't be done, it's impossible, there's no way to accomplish this, and then rally a team to go accomplish the seemingly impossible. And when you get that sense as a leader of the ability to have a multiplying effect, when you can bring a diverse team together, people who aren't afraid to take some risks, and then help the team accomplish something that at the start looked impossible. It's such an incredible momentum builder, and it's a very fulfilling job as a result. And it's a way to again invest in other people, because when you cross that threshold, that team that just accomplished the impossible now can take on the next seemingly impossible team
and multiply. Can I follow up on something else for our students as well? So inside your brain, you do have this vision of the impossible. How do you explain, how do you make these rest of elements of your team not to follow the vision, but to share the vision and build the vision together? So how do you bring it out, or how do you invite people in? You see it in your brain that it's possible. So how do we translate that?
Yeah, that goes back to that sense of collaboration. So this leadership skill of what I'll call leading by influence, leading by collaborating. So it's a different leadership model. So I think in the past, traditionally, there's more of a command and control sort of leadership structure, a vertical structure, where you think of as employees working for you or the team working for you. And when you flip that equation, you think about a leader works for the team, and that you're a steward and a servant of the team, and that you now bring the team to the forefront and you build a collaborative network. So rather than me explaining the answer or trying to explain the impossible answer, the team generates the answer. And I seed the conversation in a way that encourages them to bring ideas forward. And it's important at that point to have a team with a lot of diverse perspectives, right? So have constructive debate, willing to argue with each other, creating an environment where it's safe to argue, it's fun to argue, it's an environment where different views can be brought to the table, and that's the way you solve seemingly impossible problems. But it's the leader. The leader can't define the solution. The leader can enable the team, enable a constructive debate, bring all the diverse talent to the table. But the talent, the people are the ones that come up with the solutions.
Yeah. Dennis, I want to follow up on that, because you said something last night in your session when I was listening in, like the voice behind the curtain. You said something in your session about don't do the work for the people on your team that they should be doing, that don't substitute yourself as a way of managing the group. And I thought that was really important, because the temptation, I think, for student leaders, and we see it a lot, is that they have to do it all. They have to create it all. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, I think that's a really important characteristic. This is the point of developing trust and respect for your team, real trust. And that was a challenge for me early on in my management career as well, because I was pretty proud of my engineering capability. I was pretty good at my technical job. But once you become the manager, the leader of the team, you have to let go of that, and you have to trust the people you bring onto the team. And you have to trust the idea of bringing in people with different backgrounds and different capabilities, and in some cases filling gaps that you might have. You have to be, I'll say, humble as a leader, and genuine enough to admit the fact that you don't know everything, and that you can bring in people who are much more expert in areas where you haven't been trained. And it's important to create that fabric of trust, and then you have to demonstrate it. You can't tell your team you're going to trust them and then continuously check on their work, or not, give them the opportunity to take risks and explore. And that takes time, but a team that trusts each other, that really trusts each other and counts on each other, that's a team that accomplishes great things. And I go back to my earlier point, when you work in a business like I had the opportunity to work in, where lives literally depend on what you do, that building trust is inherent in the business. I go back to my X-32 example. I still remember the first vertical flight. So the airplane is designed to fly like a normal airplane and then stop, come to a hover in the air and then vertically land. And the first pilot, his name was Dennis O'Donoghue, was our chief pilot and a great friend of mine. And we grew closer together during the program. And I remember he was the pilot for that first flight. And that's a little nerve wracking. And you see your friend get in the cockpit, strap in, and as the airplane takes off, you're thinking, boy, this really has to work. It really has to work. And that doesn't happen unless you trust that everybody on the team's done their job with excellence. And big complex projects demand trust, because there's no way that you could individually check every detail. You have to trust your team. So, and that's something you have to build up over time. But when you trust people and when they can sense that you really trust them and truly respect them, they'll accomplish a lot more.
Yeah. Hey, Dennis, I'm really in agreement with your leadership style, and I want to come back to that. But what struck me with the discussion so far is your opportunity to innovate inside Boeing. And I'm curious, I think a lot of young people, the perception of going to work for a big company is they'll get put in a cubicle and work on some tiny little thing and not have an impact, right? So how do you, was it just because Boeing was a competitive and progressive company, or what, can you innovate in a big company? Clearly you did, but what made it work? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely you can. In fact, big companies like Boeing are just wide open playing fields for innovation. But you have to be willing to go take the risk as an individual, right? So if you want to work in a big organization and hide in the bureaucracy, you can. That's not a very fulfilling career option. But when you work for a big company, you also have the opportunity to leverage complexity, to actually benefit from complexity, and to leverage scale. You can accomplish just amazing things. So imagine putting the International Space Station on orbit, flying large football field size equipment into orbit and then assembling it in orbit. Something that's been flying around the Earth for 20 years. I had a chance to work on that kind of project. Well, a company with giant scale and complexity allows you to do that scale of innovation. You can seek out the hard opportunities. Then broaden yourself. One of the strategies or things that I enjoyed at Boeing was to go work on every different kind of product that the company had. So I worked on commercial airplanes and rockets and satellites and fighter aircraft and tanker aircraft, and always trying to get breadth of experience. And two benefits to that. One, it gives you an open field for innovation, broader innovation. And it also extends your network. You meet amazing people. And those networks, those connect the dots sort of exercises always come back beneficially, downstream. So that's what I loved about Boeing. And it's true for a lot of big high-tech companies. With their scale, you can accomplish amazing scale of innovation. And with their breadth, you can get great variety and connect the dots. And I had a knack for connecting the dots. I could do something in one part of the company and then see something in another part of the company and connect those dots. And one of today's innovation models is what I'll call intrapreneurship. And in addition to entrepreneurship, which is fantastic with growing new businesses inside big companies today, intrapreneurship, optimizing how businesses operate, process innovation, things like supply chain innovation, digital enterprises. Those are great open playing fields for innovation as well.
Definitely.
Dennis, I am just always in awe of everything that you're saying. I'm always taking notes. And one of the things that you talked about in a previous conversation that we had was you coming into Boeing at a young age and then getting into leadership roles. And even so, having to lead people from various generations, right? Various ages. Could you speak a little bit more on that? Because I think a lot of the students that are coming out of Iowa State, they're talented, they're equipped, they're ready to lead, and they're taking on leadership roles across the nation and possibly overseas. What are some strategies and tactics that you would give to them?
That's a great question. It's an important dynamic. I had the privilege, again, of having some leadership positions fairly early in my career because of my mentors that put me in stretch assignments. But when you're a young leader, and just to give you a sense of it, again, I'll go back to that X-32 experience. As I was a chief engineer around 30 years old, I had a lot of engineers and senior designers and business people on my team that were in their 50s and 60s, people that had been around and had seen a lot more than I had seen, and had great experiences and great knowledge. And so as a leader, as a young leader, it's important to really show that sense of respect for experience, to bring all those talents to the table. And as a young leader, not to come off as overconfident or, hey, I know it all and you need to listen to me. It's again, this sense of humility as a leader, that you work for the team. And one of the ways I would do that in our design meetings on X-32 is I would open up the meeting and set up this collaborative environment and encourage people to provide inputs. But then let some of those senior experienced leaders guide the conversation. And as a leader, being willing to change your opinion. I remember several examples where I thought this was the right answer, and I would kind of throw it out, and then a senior leader would make an argument for a different answer. One example being the tail configuration on this new X-32 airplane. And after some robust discussion, said, you're right, that's a better answer. And so as a leader, being humble enough and in public and in front of the team to say, you're right, you have a better answer than what I thought it was. That builds trust and respect. And when you do that, then the people of the team are willing to stand up and offer their opinions. And it creates a much more collaborative environment. But as a young leader, I think that's an important dynamic. And maybe I learned a little bit about respecting my elders from my parents, growing up. But again, some of those basic things you learn about integrity, hard work, respecting those around you, those work at every level of the organization.
Thank you. And then I have one follow-up question that kind of piggybacks off of that. This is a question from Amir, and Amir wants to know what set of skills have you found very useful during your career that you wish you would have developed sooner, especially for an engineering student?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I, throughout my career, found the need to build a team that could bring skills in that I didn't really develop or wasn't trained in. So, for example, in my leadership positions, as I started to lead some of the businesses and profit and loss centers for Boeing, I needed help on the business and finance side. So I would always seek out the best CFO that I could find to run that piece of my organization. So I wish I had gained more of my own business and finance knowledge earlier in the process. But this is where building the right team around you is a really important skill. I developed the ability to do public speaking, to work and communicate broadly with teams and constituencies. Coming out of school, it wasn't really something I thought too much about. In fact, I wasn't really that comfortable with speaking to large crowds. And towards the end of my career, it was my favorite thing. I loved to get out and do large roundtables and big gatherings and do wide open Q&A and public speaking. Now, I kind of learned that on the job, but hey, maybe that's something I could have benefited from if I learned it earlier. It all goes back to, I'll say, multidiscipline training, right? And getting that as early as you can. That's one of the things I love about the innovation work we're doing at Iowa State and what's happening at the Innovation Center is the multidiscipline flavor of it and exposing yourself to areas of expertise that aren't natural to you. I think that's another part of seeking out the hardest things is go delve into areas that don't naturally come to you and get different perspectives, bring different disciplines to the table, expose yourself to other disciplines is a really healthy thing to do.
Dennis, you have a real gift, I think, too, for slowing the conversation down and also making other people feel like they are the people who are smart, leaning into expertise. There's a confidence in the way you hold conversation and make other people feel confident around you. I am wondering, for our students who might not be at a point, like we have a lot of freshmen and sophomores that are so excited about their projects and want to contribute, and then they say, but I really don't have all these years of experience. Why would somebody listen to me? So help them answer that. If they don't have experience or skills, but they have a great idea and they're pursuing it, with their entire heart, why would somebody listen to them? Someone like you.
Well, I think part of it, again, is how you present your idea. So one, you want to have passion for the idea. The idea of having courage and passion for the mission is important. But communicating that in a respectful and open way. So, real communication is two-way in its construct. So it's not just about telling people about your idea. It's about asking people for their inputs, gaining knowledge from others, accepting their inputs, doing that in a respectful way. The phrase of being quick to listen and slow to speak is a very important leadership and collaboration skill. And I think, culturally, we have a tendency to speak first, to talk as much as we can, and not spend as much time listening. And so the art of being a good listener and accepting other people's inputs and then using that to reframe how you talk about something is an important skill. So yeah, I'd encourage people to try to practice that. And while you want to be enthusiastic about your idea and present it in a novel way and in an appropriately forceful way, also taking time to listen and to gain input and to seek knowledge is a really effective communication style.
So Dennis, the other thing I'm aware of is you're talking a lot about these industry innovations, and some of the projects you're working on, I know, or that you've worked on in the past, are really cool. I suspect you have a slide deck back there that you could share some of those innovations. Do you have that available?
Well, I just might have one chart I could share. Did you give me a share capability?
Yes, you have share capability. Spencer, beam me up, Scotty. I need help. So, Spencer, can you give Dennis permission to share? You should have. Have you tried to share yet?
It says I am now the presenter.
There you go.
Can you see this screen?
Cannot, Spencer. We need help. So Spencer will help us with that.
I see it here. Let's see, share content. Okay,
there we go. Now we can see it, Dennis.
Okay. Yeah. Let me just describe this one. This is in a nutshell a couple of things I'm working on. Now there's just a ton of great innovation that's going on in the aerospace world today. If you look at the mega trends around the world, aerospace plays into a lot of them. It's about keeping the world connected. It's about saving people time. So three things that I'm really intrigued about is in the future of mobility. I think three transformations that are right upon us that a lot of innovators are working on. One of those is in the arena of autonomous air vehicles and what I'll call urban mobility. So in dense population areas, how do you create safe and seamless autonomous transportation, things like flying taxis. We're already seeing companies that are moving into e-commerce, innovative delivery via drones. You see that happening all around us. But in the not too distant future, you're going to see all of this two-dimensional ground traffic move into three-dimensional highways with flying robotic taxis in urban environments, landing on the top of skyscrapers, moving people seamlessly between their homes and offices, dramatically reducing congestion, dramatically reducing emissions. So get ready for a autonomous robotic taxi, flying out of your driveway, and that transformation is going to happen soon. The second one is in this whole idea of high-speed travel, supersonic, hypersonic travel, and making that economically viable. And a lot of work going on in transports that could fly at Mach 5 to 6. So think 5 to 6 times the speed of sound. Imagine getting anywhere in the world in 2 hours. Anywhere in the world in 2 hours and doing it safely and conveniently. How that would change the world if you could really do that. Anywhere in the world in 2 hours, stay connected.
How many years away are we from that, Dennis?
I would say that it's something that's going to happen within the next decade. The fundamental technologies are well underway. Several companies right now that are getting ready to fly prototypes that are in the Mach 2 range, twice the speed of sound, and then go the next step to be Mach 5. So it's the not too distant future. And then the third area that I think is really intriguing is the space ecosystem. So this is making low Earth orbit. So when I say low Earth orbit, this is about 100 miles up above the Earth, that sort of range where the things like the International Space Station reside today. Today, the International Space Station is really the only, I'll say, destination in low Earth orbit. But a lot of companies working on new destinations. So space hotels, space factories, space research centers where you can take advantage of zero or low gravity operations. Wow. And as those become viable, access to space is going to rapidly change. So a lot of companies, including Boeing, working on low cost access to space. At Boeing, the Starliner CST-100 was the project where we launched the first vehicle last year. And I think what you're going to see over the next decade is traveling to space, to low Earth orbit, is going to become as common as air travel is today. And it's going to become routine, and that'll change the world. And from there, we're going to go to the moon and Mars. But these three transformations, autonomous mobility, autonomous, flying taxis, urban mobility, high-speed transport, and low Earth orbit space ecosystem. Those are three huge transformations full of innovation, and they all kind of benefit for the world as well. So those are just a few of the things I'm excited about. My little consulting business is working in all three, but there are a ton of innovators around the world pouring capital and talent into these three areas.
Fantastic.
You're also inspiring a lot of student innovators. So can you talk a little bit about your work with them?
Well, I can. So I'm really having a ton of fun with that. And in addition to the circuit training that I'm doing that you mentioned previously, I'm also spending time mentoring some of the student teams that are starting up new businesses. One of them is a business called Curiosity Labs. It's working on autonomous microscopy and fantastic applications there. So I'm really excited on consulting with them. I met with another team this morning that's working on a space mining business. They want to create a business to go mine minerals and things from asteroids. And so they're working through their business case right now. So it's been a lot of fun working with students, getting it.
And I have a question as it relates to, is Dennis there?
We lost him.
Yeah, he'll be back.
So I can speak. Dennis is really working very intensively with our students. He is working with the classrooms with those students who are doing design sprints around specific problems, one of which was requiring them to figure out who their innovation identity is, which I think is a critical problem of go forward. Dennis, you were just talking about your student projects, and you were after microscopy and
I'm glad you have trouble with that word too.
And space mining. What was after space mining?
Well, I was just wrapping up saying I've got about 5 or 6 teams that we're working together with right now, and the ideas are just bubbling. As you said last night, as we were doing the circuit training, we were going around the room asking people for their one word. What was their innovation character? And as we talked about that, it was a wonderful conversation. You could see the popcorning of ideas around the room and more ideas for new businesses that people wanted to start, or in some cases, again, entrepreneurship, bringing new, process optimization to bear.
Nakaya, do you have a question from the audience, or can I ask a little bit about the future of mobility?
I do have one question, and it's about self-care. So sorry for switching gears just a little bit. Dennis, you talk so much about, or common things that I hear in your conversation are really passion, ambition, going after the hardest things. And I can imagine that when you did get into the Boeing company, you were doing so much, you were excelling, you were going over above and beyond. So my question to you is, as a young person, how did you balance mental health and just self-care and working against burnout? How did you balance that? How did you not burn out, but also achieve goals? How did you not burn out, but also go above and beyond? What was that like? Or maybe you didn't master it and you have advice for students, I'm not sure.
Well, hey, it's a great question. And throughout my career, including when I was CEO, I often got asked the question about how do you keep your life balanced, right? And how do you go about doing that? How do you not burn out? And yeah, I can't claim to be an expert on that. I certainly made my own number of missteps on that front. And my wonderful wife Becky, who I met at Iowa State, and we've been married now for 32 years. But she's also a very good coach for me in terms of balancing life, and helps me see when I don't do it very well. So I can't claim to be an expert in that area. So I think it's really important to have people around you who can give you honest feedback. Becky's a wonderful example for me, but surround yourself with people who can help you stay balanced. And then always remember that even though you have great passion for the work, and as the CEO of Boeing, I did, there are more important things in life than work. And I used to love to do this, but as the CEO of Boeing, I would go out and meet our people, a lot of roundtables, Q&A sessions, and I'd often get the question about what's your work-life balance like? And I would stop and say, well, first of all, it's important to remember there are more important things than work, and just less. And I'd get a lot of quizzical looks, and I said, well, you heard it from the CEO. There are more important things than work. And that's an important thing to keep in mind. And you have to sometimes pause and remind yourself about that. But taking time to be healthy, physically, mentally, spiritually is important. And when you take time to do that, then others on your team will take time to do that. If you don't take time to do that, if you set the wrong example, if you are burning out as the leader, your team's also going to burn out. Yep. And so you got to play for the long run. You have to invest in your people, encourage your people to be well. And you can't really encourage your team to do that unless you're taking time to do that yourself. So that was kind of my philosophy, and maintaining the long view and maintaining balance and remembering that there are things that are a lot more important than work. Know what those priorities are and make sure you're investing in those priorities is a really important part of being a leader and an innovator.
Can I make a connection there?
Please.
Okay, so I like the fact that you said that you were a very good connector, and then you are now telling us to take care of what is most important. And one of the things that we have when we discuss creativity is that actually the best moments of creativity are when you are not at your work, but you are with your people doing the things that you love, going for a ride, or because connections come in. So how do you bring that balance that you have in your life back to your work without being thinking about space all the time, but making the connections? And the reason why I'm asking this is because the future of mobility can be so driven, but at the same time exhausting, because you're thinking of futures that don't exist yet, but at the same time you are here. You are with your people, paying attention to the moment of the now. So how do you leap between one and the other? And I'm asking from the creative point of view, of course. Yeah.
Well, I would argue that, and make the same point you made, that some of the most creative time is time outside of the office, time outside of the work environment. It's one of the reasons I like to get out on long bike rides. I do some of my best thinking and creating while I'm out on a long bike ride. And when I can do that with others, even better. One of the favorite things I did when I was CEO of Boeing is I would travel with my bike, and almost any city I went to, I could find 20 or 30 Boeing riders that would come out for a ride. I'd hand out, Boeing jerseys, specialized jerseys. I made a new one every year. So it was kind of a prize for going out on a ride with the CEO. So it was kind of a fun, inspirational thing. But when you get out on a ride, right, people who have a passion for a hobby, and you start talking about the business and you talk about ideas, and it's a great way to break down barriers. It completely flattens the organization. And I would go out for rides, and I'd have some senior executives and some first line managers and some factory floor workers, people from all walks of life. When we ride bike together, we're all equals. And it flattens out the organization. It creates open communication lanes. It's a great way to create new ideas. That was just one example. But when you can intersect your favorite hobbies with a creative spirit and tap the talent of your team, that's a great way to generate ideas and then bring them back to the business. I remember just dozens of examples of things, ideas that we generated during bike rides that we came back and implemented in the business.
Yeah. And on that note, then we had that discussion with previous guests, is that your academic setting provides you with developing your technical skills and gaining this professional competency or proficiency, but then your life makes you grow or go on a learning curve on the transferable skills, the soft skills. You are talking about team, you're talking about communication. How would you tell our students to go out for bike rides? Because officially what we are saying in this is that the academic is important, but the other part is also important. The other part of going and seeking things that are not just the technical skill.
Exactly. So this is why, one of the questions I ask in our circuit training is, I ask each teammate, what's your favorite hobby? And you notice what happens in those sessions when people start talking about their hobbies. You suddenly find somebody from the engineering school and somebody from the business school who both love cooking, right? And so they make a new connection. And sometimes hobbies are great team connectors. They create communication lanes that didn't exist before. So encouraging that is a great way to build a healthy team that's full of respect for each other. And then that rolls back into leadership principles around collaboration and how we respect the sense of excellence that we want to bring to our work every day. It's important to have, know what your values foundation is, and then use these opportunities to connect with each other outside of work and bring that combination of values and common interests back into the workplace. So take time to do that. When you're at school at Iowa State, right, and you're pursuing your academic degree, really important. You want to do that with all excellence. It takes some time to go experience other dimensions of life. Go spend some time at the Innovation Center and just soak it up. I was walking around the Innovation Center this morning, right now. I was walking by the culinary innovation studio, and I was peeking through the windows trying to figure out what they were working on. And, I learned something just because of curiosity, and having the opportunity to walk by areas of work where people outside of my lane of expertise were doing some amazing, innovative things. It gave me some ideas, right? So I think natural curiosity is a really important thing.
Dennis, I think that curiosity, I think you should talk about, well, first of all, you're working with a student who wants to build the largest theme park competition at Iowa State, but also there's a reason why I connected you with that student. Can you share a little bit about kind of your hobby, your external interests, and some of the work that you did in terms of in the entertainment industry?
Yeah,
right?
So that's another wonderful project, right? Working with some students who are, I'll say, theme park designers. And frankly, I learned a lot over the last few months talking to this team, because I didn't realize all of the engineering disciplines that went into designing theme park rides and ensuring those are safe, and the passion that goes into these amazing creative rides and how you generate those ideas. It reminded me of an innovation sprint that we did at Boeing a couple years ago, working with Disney. And as Disney was working towards opening the new Star Wars theme park, which hopefully some of you noticed opened last year, right, prior to all the COVID situation. But that theme park, as part of the opening, Disney wanted to have a couple of X-Wing fighters. For those of you that are Star Wars fans, myself, right? X-Wing fighters is Luke Skywalker's machine, right? Probably my favorite starship in the series. But they wanted real full-scale flying X-Wing fighters for the opening. And they came to us about 5 months before opening in the park, and said we'd like you to work with us to design and build a couple of X-Wing fighters. And by the way, they have to be safe enough that we can actually fly them during the event. You know, the fact that we have the viewing public nearby, right? These have to be safe. This has to work. This has to work. So of course, our people looked at it and said, well, one, passion for the mission, right? A lot of Star Wars fans. Two, it seems impossible, right? In 4 months, we have to design, build, and fly, test, and certify 2 flying vehicles. And this is going to be high visibility, right? So it has to go right. And so we put a crack team together, assembled some of the best talent from across the company, resourced it, and this team did amazing things. And they built 2 flying, these were drones, wrapped with X-Wing fighter skins. So they, with Disney's help, they looked like authentic X-Wing fighters. And they actually flew at the opening event for the theme park opening. And if you go online, go on YouTube, you can see some cool videos of these 2 X-Wing fighters flying around in the sky. You got big spotlights on them. You swear they're the real deal, right? And they did it safely, and the crowd response was just over the top. And it's an example of an innovation sprint. Again, the seemingly impossible made possible with a lot of incredible talent.
Wow. Dennis, that's a great story. I want to kind of rewind back to the range issue. That's actually a book I read this summer. It's called Range. I can't remember the author, but the metaphor is there's the Tiger Woods who's golfing it at 2 and becomes an expert, that 10,000 hours argument. And then the Roger Federer, who was a soccer player and a tennis player and all these other things along the way. And it goes into a lot of examples and details about range. And one of the aspects that they bring up is that in order to develop range, you need to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, right? And I, as a parent of young adults, and I know your kids are similar ages, it's trying to get that point across is a challenge, because they don't want to fail. They don't want to feel like they're not good at something, right? And so getting people, what's the right message for young people? Because I'm struggling with it in my own family, to go ahead and try things that are, you know, outside of your comfort zone, and that's where you grow. What do you think?
Yeah, well, you know, it's a great question, right? And it's relevant to our families. It's relevant to our workforce, right? It's a question I asked myself early on, and yeah, we want to be successful, and our culture sort of tells us what success looks like, and sometimes that means, you know, getting the right grades at school, and you know, you want to, I'll say to a degree, play it safe so that you can get the right grades and you can accomplish what people would see as success. And that's, you know, that's one path, but it's a limiting path. And great innovators and people that accomplish great things, they have to have a sense of the freedom to take risks, and that they'll still be supported. You know, as Becky and I talk with our kids, right? We talk to them about encouraging them to take risks, and that if they fail, we're actually okay with that. In fact, we embrace setback. We learn the most when we have a setback, and so you have to create an environment where people can be comfortable doing that. And yeah, it's a delicate balance. I think about at Boeing. You know, I was challenged by people to go take on risky assignments. And I've tried to do the same in return for others, to give them stretch assignments to encourage risk taking, but smart risk taking. It doesn't mean just take risk for the sake of saying, hey, I'm a risk taker.
Sure, right.
Smart risk. and then the ability to learn from failure. And I think that's a really important characteristic of leaders and innovators is the ability to learn from failure. Don't not just be a habitual failure generator. You don't want to re-experience failure. You want to experience failure and learn from it. And if you do that, then you can really grow as a leader and an innovator, and you can begin to embrace setbacks in your career. And it's sort of it's a different approach than what traditional thinking would lead you to. I think during my career, when I moved from Seattle to Washington, D.C., and it was a big decision for our family to move across the country. My wife gave up her veterinarian business in Seattle as part of that move. We had our first child as we moved across the country, and I moved to a new business for Boeing to start up an air traffic management business, which I didn't really know much about that field. So it had risks in all kinds of dimensions.
Sure.
And just after we started that business, as we were trying to increase the capacity in the skies of the United States, 9/11 happened. So overnight, the equation went from not enough capacity in the skies to not enough security in the skies.
Sure.
Unraveled the business model. So you can imagine at that point, a lot of risk taken, and a pretty devastating turn of events environmentally.
Sure.
And all of that, you could view that as a huge setback and something that would devastate you, or use that as an opportunity to learn and grow. And that year and a half that I was in that assignment, I learned my learning curve was steeper than at any other time. And it prepared me as a leader to be able to embrace setback, to handle adversity, to have endurance and perseverance. And so I think as a leader and innovator, if you can generate that willingness to take risk, to learn from it, and then to build character, to build resilience, to build endurance as a result, that really unleashes a lot of capacity. And then not only doing that individually, but helping your team do that. Create an environment where your team is comfortable taking risks and learning and growing and developing resiliency as a team. I love a resilient team. A resilient team is a team that can accomplish big things.
Great. Thank you.
On that one, because we talked about failures a lot with our students in the previous sessions, I cannot recall who was our guest, but they were talking about mistakes as well. So knowing when you do the mistake, but actually the mistake is the starting point for something new. So it's not just risk taking. And you mentioned smart risk, which I would ask on behalf of our students, what is a smart risk in aviation and the future of mobility? But we can take that one as a second question. The first question would be, how do I know that my mistake, this setback that I have now, can become the thing that will trigger a disruption or a change on the status quo? Because I still look at, I failed, I did a mistake, I need to learn something from this. But actually, it's not just learning. It's like, it's the beginning of something. So,
well, I don't know that you can predict whether it's going to be the beginning of something, but I would argue every mistake should be viewed from that perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot about attitude. So all of us make mistakes, right? I can think back in my Boeing career, I made plenty of mistakes. I'm far from perfect. But I always tried to go into it, and when you make a mistake, own it, be humble enough to acknowledge it, and then be willing to learn. And that attitude is really important. And then actively seek that learning. So mistakes aren't something that you should fret about or worry about. Spend a lot of time saying, I wish I had done something different. I wish I had avoided that mistake. It's an easy trap to fall into, and you can spend a lot of time looking back and being remorseful about it. But mistakes ought to be an opportunity to, again, look forward. If you can capture your mistake, acknowledge it, own up to it, humbly accept it, but then turn your attention to what did I learn, and now how will it change my behavior going forward? And I think that's a really important pivot point. And you make a mistake, and you spend most of your time looking in the past, and it's remorse and wishing something different had happened. That's a lot of wasted effort and time. But if instead it causes you to think more about the future, then it can be a very productive time. So I would argue it's the attitude at the point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Dennis, I think Nakaya has a question from one of our students.
I do. I have a few actually.
Good.
So one is kind of a note and a question. It's hello, Mr. Muilenburg. It is nice to see. Oh, sorry, this is from Nicholas. Hello, Mr. Muilenburg. It is nice to see you again. I'm a freshman aerospace engineering grad who received the 2016 Dennis Muilenburg Boeing Scholarship and met you in the same year. Currently, I'm working as a software engineer, not at Boeing, and I assist my team in meeting our customer low-level software requirements and go through FAA certification, which is not generally innovation-based. How could I contribute to the innovators or the innovations of regular business orders in my role?
Right on. Great question. Well, hey, it's great to hear from one of the Muilenburg scholars, and I remember our previous connections. So I look forward to learning more about where he's working and the software work that's underway. But I think he's a great example. So the software processes, certification of systems that are safety of life, safety of flight kind of systems, which it sounds like he's working on with the FAA. Those are processes that demand incredible discipline and rigor. And at the same time, because they're software based, they allow you to create new digital innovation in terms of how software is developed, how software is checked out, how it's certified. Those certification processes can be optimized, actually achieve better certification results on a faster time frame by using new digital tools. So I would encourage, again, to look at what's the value proposition. What does the customer care about here? Number one, safety. Number one, safety. So are there things you can do to further enhance safety? Process-based improvements. And then secondly, if you can maintain safety while improving cost and schedule, find opportunities to do that. But this field of digital optimization, software optimization in businesses, intrapreneurship, as I mentioned earlier, is a wide open playing field. And nobody should step away from those kind of opportunities. And sometimes we say certification processes they're defined in a book and you just got to follow the recipe. Even the best recipes can be made better, right? And that's the approach.
Thank you. And then I have another question from Maya. Maya's question is, can we ask Dennis more about his work with CyFly Consulting and how to translate his experience with innovation from Boeing into his current business?
Well, hey, that's a great question. So, several things I'm doing with that CyFly business. One is giving back on the education side. So, my engagement at Iowa State is something I've got a lot of passion for, and will continue to have a lot of passion for. Another dimension of that consulting business is working on the future of mobility items that I mentioned earlier. So those three transformations around urban mobility, robotic aircraft, space ecosystem, and high-speed travel, those are places where I'm engaged and enjoying that a lot, working with several startup businesses. And then another field of interest is in artificial intelligence and a broad variety of applications there. So I'm doing consulting work in a number of those areas. And it's interesting as you start to think about things like artificial intelligence and autonomous systems coming together. Again, speaking of connecting dots, two high-tech fields that are emerging. So you think of things like smart control systems for robotic vehicles in urban environments. What's the wraparound control system that allows both piloted and unpiloted vehicles to be co-mingled in airspace and create sort of tubes, highway tubes in the airspace that are safe and secure? That's a really interesting intersection of autonomous vehicles and artificial intelligence, as an example.
Very cool. Any other questions from our audience or our panel? We've worked them over pretty well, I think.
We have worked them over pretty well, I think.
Yes.
So I do have a question, actually, Dennis.
Sure.
As you think about the future, right? Our students and their future as they're planning forward, and they're looking at their academic career, how would they look at the operating manual? What does the successful operating manual for Iowa State look like? What should they be doing to take advantage of aggressively? It really accelerates their progress and gets them in front of someone like you in a way that's impressive.
Well, a lot of ways to do that, but one of the things I love about Iowa State, and it truly differentiates the university. And believe me, as a Boeing CEO, I had an opportunity to see a lot of different universities. This hands-on innovation theme at Iowa State is truly differentiating. And a lot of universities talk about innovation. They teach it in their coursework, but very few of them actually create an environment where you get hands-on innovation opportunities. And even fewer do it in a way where you get cross-discipline innovation. So I think the thing that's unique about Iowa State is this Innovate at Iowa State initiative that truly is multidiscipline. It is really hard to do in today's university construct anywhere in the world. Universities struggle with it. And I think Iowa State has broken the code on it. So I would encourage students who want to accelerate their career path to get plugged into Innovate at Iowa State and take advantage of the opportunity. Jim, your student innovation center there is just a treasure. I mean, it's incredible. Even just walking through it once a week as a student would be valuable. Just the soak time, right? So I encourage people to reach out for the hands-on innovation opportunities.
Yeah, I like how you talk about broke the code. Because I think that we're looking for, really students, for students, by students, with students. We really mean it. And they're working side by side in sessions like these, even side by side. They're learning with their faculty members and with their staff and with industry stakeholders. And I think one thing we're hearing from our industry people over and over again is how surprised and excited and pleased they are when they're in these meetings with students, and how the students are living up to this expectation of saying, okay, you want my opinion, my ideas, here I am. So what are you hearing, as our last question here, what are you hearing from students that is surprising you and making you stand up and say, wow, they really are breaking the code?
Well, this is probably the most rewarding part of being the innovator in residence and working with the student teams. I'm just so almost awestruck by the talent, right? I keep thinking back to when I was going to Iowa State and what I knew or didn't know, and the talent package that I brought to the table and my aspirations, and the students today that I'm meeting are just amazing. So one, right, they ought to be proud of who they are today and recognize the talents they have. It's incredible, and they're well connected. Their technical expertise, but also their ability to work with other students. So leverage that capacity, and I'm just thrilled, as I said, awestruck by the talent that I see. But then to make the most of that experience and to accelerate going forward, again, seek out areas of learning. Seek out areas where you don't have deep expertise. Begin to build your networks, build collaborative systems. The world today needs great collaborators, bridge builders. You don't have to go too far outside of the university. Get out into the social media world, and you see divisiveness all around us. It's politics, it's cultures, there's any number of challenges around us that people tend to run to their camp. And what we need is innovators who can build bridges, who can collaborate, span some of those gaps, who can bring people together, develop those skills, and that's a way to differentiate yourself. And then always do it with a sense of excellence. There's nothing good about delivering results without a set of values attached to them. And often the world will suggest that you can deliver results or deliver profits or some material thing that you can deliver. But if you don't deliver that with a sense of excellence, with your value system, who you're really about as a leader, then you really haven't delivered anything. So I encourage students to think holistically about their responsibilities and who they are. Understand who they are as a leader, as a person, and bring that ability to collaborate to the table, and also bring their values to the table, and always think about delivering with that utmost sense of excellence in what they do.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really important landing point too. We're talking about the difference between technical execution and how they practice. And that's one of the things I keep coming back to Manny Buma, right? Who was working with you on the space project, and him saying, I know where to get technical expertise. Show me how to practice it in the world. Give me that portal of access to what does it look like to accelerate and to contribute. And so this is what we're trying to do with our Innovation Center, Jim. You know that
Absolutely.
to really launch these programs. I'm aware. I want to thank you, Dennis, for the time that you have spent today, and also beyond that, honestly, there are certain people, and this is an important innovator quality, certain people who come back to contribute the way you've contributed wholeheartedly, all in 2000%. I can't count the number of hours that you've put in so that our students can participate in Innovate at Iowa State. So I have to thank you here for that. Jim, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Second that. Yeah, we've been working closely with Dennis for, 6 months probably. And it's just amazing what has come together. And Dennis, without you, I don't think we'd be where we are today. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that feedback, and it goes both ways, right? So, but genuinely appreciate that, and good reminder for all of us, right? Our responsibility to give back, to be good stewards, people invested in us, and the opportunity to invest in others. And it's a great and rewarding thing to do. So I'm honored to team up with you guys, and we got a lot of work still ahead of us. So
Yes, we do.
Oh my gosh.
Don't slow down.
Speaking of work ahead of us, first of all, thank you, Anna Luge and Nakaya and Spencer. Jim, of course, who was one of my day-to-day heroes. And but I want to talk about the work ahead of us. Next week, we have two really quite amazing speakers. And one of them is Abraham Higginbotham. He's going to be on Thursday night, 5 to 7. He is the executive producer and writer of Modern Family, Will and Grace, Arrested Development, Ugly Betty. And his unique approach to young people and breaking that code is just fabulous. His idea about how to use comedy and also how to have perspective about yourself in conversation in a way that invites people in and also breaks barriers. And so that is a really important innovator skill. So you don't want to miss it. He's funny. Of course, he has to be funny, right? He's going to challenge you. He breaks all sort of boundaries. And then on Friday, we have Bill Christensen, who is the COO of PIC Genus Pork. Bill is one of the smartest people I know in the world. He has taken that company just globally and has such unique ideas about customer insight. I think you're going to learn a lot from him about how to really break through traditional barriers in this industry, in the ag industry, but also even beyond in terms of how to recruit teams. He's a cowboy, and that's what an innovator is a cowboy. So please look for those two things on our Student Innovation website. They're both under, one of them's under Flagship, and I think even Abraham's under Flagship, and also Innovation Programming. One more thing, if anyone in our audience is interested in our project, there's a competition coming up for the Air Force to write something that's going to innovate, write a proposal addressed to the Air Force to innovate something unique in the Air Force. If you're interested in working in a project group in the same way Emily worked, or Elizabeth Smith worked in a project group to kind of forward a proposal, then I want to encourage you to do that. Please let us know, and under contact me at the Innovation Fellows tab. Okay.
Great.
Thanks, team. Thanks for you. Thanks for our students. And
Yes.
as I said, with students, by students, for students, we innovate anywhere.
That's right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.